It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, November 4th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that really thinks the Flyers are about where we thought they might be at this point in the season.
Pretty close.
We're going to get into our observations about 10 games in on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here, as always, with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. That's where we post about our episodes and the latest Flyers news. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We are going to get into 10 observations for 10 games into the season today. We're going to do some Flyers observations and some NHL observations overall, and then we will preview this weekend's matchup against Claude Giroux and the Ottawa Senators. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you are listening right now. Hit that subscribe button and you'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so if you want to watch us over there, subscribe as well. Russ, there isn't really any news to talk about just because they had the back-to-back and had a day off, but this is a good time in the season to really take stock of where we are. We're about 10 games in. The Flyers are 5-3-2, 12 points in fifth place in the Metro Division, which, again, I think is pretty spot on about where we think this team could be. And my first observation is related to why they may not be in the basement of the division thus far, and that's the torts factor. And on the good side of that, I really think the team is working harder than they have in the past year. The effort is there. Maybe some of the skill is missing that's leading to, some of the negative side of things, but there is no doubt that this team is playing with more attack and they're battling harder, especially on the boards. And, I think that's mostly a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, the efforts there, they certainly are playing somewhat better defense. I'm not going to say it's great. It's better. It's better than nothing. No, it's better than it was. I would say, Travis Konecny is doing well. Kevin Hayes is doing well. So those are two guys that have caught on the system well. So yeah, they're not going to be in the basement. They still could be like one of the 5 worst when it's done. They're not trending towards that yet, but right now, because of the start, it is sort of propping them up a little bit. And now we'll see, after this 10, can they start to do that all over again? Ottawa Senators are a good test of that because of the mental part of playing against Claude Giroux, because there's enough guys there that know him.
Yeah, we will definitely be getting to that later in the show. I think that maybe the flip side to that is that tort standard too high for the current personnel?
Yeah, I'm thinking it is, unless they're all of a sudden going to make trades or try and pick up more guys off the waiver wire. Like I feel like once we get to mid-season, there'll be less of the younger guys than we expected. That's sort of how it's trending right now.
Yeah, and that's sort of the next observation here is that he has said from the beginning that he wants to play the kids and get a sense of who the Flyers are as a team and what the future looks like, but it hasn't really trended that way at all. They did pick up a couple of guys off waivers, like you just mentioned, and if you look at the season's starting roster compared to where it is now, there's a lot that's the same. Don't get me wrong. But again, with the injuries, that we don't have Couturier, we don't have JVR right now, Atkinson is out. So you'd think there'd be a lot more room for the kids, but we have Sedlak and Bellows in there now instead. And so somebody that was on the opening day roster, like Hayden Hodgson, is no longer with the team. Jackson Cates is no longer with the team. Ollie Lixel is no longer with the team. And, Cam York didn't make the opening day roster. And, he's hurt now. But, that aside, the list goes on of like several guys that were on the roster thus far this season that are not here anymore. And so I think that he really needs to start like kind of putting his money where his mouth is in terms of that.
Yeah, I think so because again, when Atkinson's back, when JVR is back,
Mhm.
that's going to be interesting. Artem Anisimov is almost healthy. I think they're going to sign him. Can't imagine they're going to pull a vet for him. So
Well, they got to get rid of one contract to do it. So
yeah, so that's going to be another thing. Uh, I would hate for that contract to be Morgan Frost, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're not going to get rid of an asset that way because they've done it before. So they've already set a precedent with that. So I can't tell you that it won't happen again. So that's the hard part of this is Torts said that, and the sad part is with some of these guys, he is done looking at them for the year, and I didn't think it would be that quick.
yeah, I think that again, the way he's been talking about it is very different than the way he is executed on it in terms
Yeah,
of giving guys chance. I didn't even mention Ronnie Attard, who
right.
was like here and gone, in the blink of an eye. So
Yeah,
I think that he's not giving these guys even like 2, 3 games in a row to look at them in any meaningful way against a weaker opponent, against a stronger opponent. Like, you gotta get a more well-rounded sense of who these guys are before you dismiss them in the lineup.
well, at least he's not Dave Haxtell, who benched Shane Wright for 3 games in a row with his grandparents in town from out of town. Yeah,
Yeah.
really classy, Dave. Nice job.
One of the other observations is that we have mentioned several times about what is the sustainability of this kind of play in terms of durability on the players and in terms of what it's been doing to the goaltenders, especially with the 3 back-to-backs so far and playing on the road. It has been a grind for the Flyers so far, and I think it's valid to be concerned about the team's health and the stamina.
Yeah, I think the stamina is the word. Health seems to be like a problem all around the league. So it's not just the Flyers, even though maybe some people around the Flyers would like to tell you it's worse for them, but it's bad everywhere. But the idea is, Scott Lawton said that they hung out Sandstrom to dry against the Leafs and recently, and that's true. It's not been all his fault. And they're not playing any better for the backup. Like, hey, we got to really, bear down here. That's not happening. And you pointed out last show that back to back wise, they're failing. So, you know, this is a little bit of an issue here because it's nice to have a standard, but if you're going to keep it that way all year and you're going to be this bad in back to backs, that's not improvement.
It is not at all. And I think, part of my concern is that is it getting too rough and tumble, right? And so the whole tough to play against mantra that Torts has put in there, like what is your thought on that?
I mean, I think they should draw the line and say, yeah, we want to be tough to play against, but there's a little bit too much of the shenanigans after the whistle. There's a little bit too much like, hey, if you feel like you're um, protecting your teammate, now all of a sudden there has to be 2 or 3 guys almost fighting at a time. It's a bit much, like we've seen D'Angelo do it. Konechny's done a little bit too much of it, considering he's one of the more talented guys on the team. Like there's certain guys you want to do that. We're not seeing Nick Delorier doing it much at all, and that's
We
really
have not.
supposed
That's really
and that's
interesting.
supposed to be his job. So
Yeah.
think about that.
Mm. Inquiring minds. I think the last big observation I have about the Flyers thus far is that obviously goaltending has saved this team
Yeah.
thus far. We've gotten tremendous play from Carter Hart and Felix Sandstrom to a large degree. We talked about how he's kind of gotten hung out to dry on the back half of the back-to-backs, but I think that to me, it's been a little unexpected. I mean, I expected Carter Hart to play well, but this good, I don't think anybody could have imagined it.
No, because we imagined the defense not being great, and honestly, um, Rasmus Ristolainen has not really taken to towards his system yet. He's not played great, so the defense is askew. Really, I mean, even the top pairing, they're getting by, but they're just getting by. Like if we ranked top pairings in the league, they're probably somewhere around 20, 21, 22, somewhere in that range. Ivan Provorov's having a really good year, but again, we're almost at that point where it's like Provorov and Sanheim and then a bunch of, other guys.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Carter Hart, and thank you, Felix Sandstrom, for your service to the Philadelphia Flyers. We appreciate you. We are going to have some observations more around the NHL and in the division coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online.
BetOnline.net is your number one source for your betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including the World Series, MMA, boxing, and golf, and of course, the NHL. So head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online where the game starts.
Check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, you can go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on the app you are listening to right now, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Russ, there have been some interesting developments in these first 10-ish games around the NHL. Obviously, different teams are at different games played thus far, but mostly around 10, 11 games so far. And I think for me, the biggest observation that I have is wow, the Devils are winning the division so far. Is this real? I mean, they have been blowing expectations out of the water. They're second in the league in Corsi for. They're top in high danger chances for per 60. They're getting 16.59 high danger chances per 60 minutes right now, which is unbelievably good.
It
And
is.
that's at 5-on-5. They're leading in expected goals for percentage in all strengths as well.
Well, I mean, look, we knew they had a lot of offensive talent. Jack Hughes is at a point a game. The speed's there. Brat's at 16 points.
Yeah, that's
That's again,
huge.
we talked about it. They probably should have signed him to a longer term deal, but they didn't. Heishier, Hamilton, they've got, Dawson Mercer. They've got a lot of talented guys. Marino's been a good ad. They've gotten Tatar back in the mix. That's all going good, and the goaltending is the interesting thing because I think Vitek Vanacek is starting to steal the job. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it could
Right.
happen, and that's something where we talked about. Like I said, I don't know if Blackwood's the guy, but Vanacek is the other guy, and it's working.
Yeah, one thing that's been interesting is that they've been doing a lot of this very recently without Palat, who was their big
Right.
pickup. He's out indefinitely. He just had groin surgery, so who knows what is going to happen with him. But the Devils are managing to succeed without their biggest pickup of the offseason. They won 4 in a row. They demolished the Canucks 7-1. And they beat the Avs 1-0 in a really hard fought game. And so they're beating teams that are kind of in the bottom of the league, but they're also being super competitive against some of the top teams, even when they haven't won. And even though they had a rough start, I think that they've really settled into things thus far. But again, is this sustainable? I don't know, but I think that it's definitely worth keeping an eye on.
It is, and Vanacek's won 3 out of his 4 starts. So, if they have found a hot goalie, that's really been the biggest thing that ails them. Palat, he'll help them down the line definitely second half of the season. If they're in a playoff run, hunt, he'll be valuable.
Yeah. On the opposite side of things, the Penguins are in really rough shape.
Hmm.
They are 3-5-2 in their last 10. They lost their sixth straight Wednesday, 6-3. They've blown multiple goal leads in 3 of those games, and they've been struggling with maintaining possession of the puck.
Yeah, they're still undefeated at home though. So for all the worry, they're having some road woes. I'm not worried about them just yet. Jerry could play better for sure. Yeah, they need to do better with leads, but they have some guys that maybe even if they start out slow, like Crosby, Malkin, whatever, that you don't worry a lot about them. So I get it. They're getting older, and everybody's waiting for that moment for them to fall off the cliff. Uh, I don't think the cliff is there yet. There's other factors, and Malkin's more than a point a game. So it's their defense. Their goaltending hasn't been great for either goalie. I think if they tighten that up a little bit, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think also if they improve their PK, they'll be in better
Yes,
shape as well. They're the 5th
good
worst
point.
in the league right now on that front. Moving over to the Atlantic Division, that whole division is starting out pretty much as nuts as we thought it would. It was going to
Hmm.
be, super competitive from the get go. But man, Buffalo Sabers are 7-3,
It's
which
impressive.
is a pretty impressive start for them so far. And meanwhile, Ottawa, who we're going to talk more about next, who maybe we thought would be taking a step forward, they're in the basement of the division right now.
Yeah, I mean, and Tampa's doing a little better than I thought. I don't know if they'll hang in there, and I don't know if the Sabres will hang in there, but they might. The Sabres, the one thing we questioned was their goaltending. We never really questioned, or at least I didn't, what Tage Thompson might be.
Right.
Is there going to be a problem? The year after his great year. There's not actually. It's just as good, and they're getting a lot of other scoring. They have Owen Power now full time on defense. That's a big help. There's a lot of things going right. Paterka is doing really well. Quinn's still learning, um, but they have a lot more scoring opportunities now, and guys to play with Skinner that they're dangerous. Dylan Cousins is starting to score a bit. So these are big developments, and Don Granato's done a good job developing. So if they were to get some goaltending at some point, or what we perceive as better goaltending, they could be in it later. But it's early,
Yeah, of course, we can't talk about the Atlantic Division without talking about the Boston Bruins because
right?
I think we all thought they were going to be good, but they're starting out really, really good. Obviously, they're atop the division. One stat that kind of stood out to me, their goal differential is a plus 19 this early in the season, which is really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery's done a good job of getting Olmark back on track, and he's the guy they invested in, and he is a really good goalie. I felt like Swayman still needed some more seasoning, and now he's injured. So, it's Olmark or bust at this point, and I think he can do it. Like, I think he could, ride that wave. They're not gonna, win 9 out of every 10. Obviously, that's not gonna happen. But at some point, they're gonna get Charlie McAvoy back too, and that's gonna
Right.
be and Krejci, right? Because Krejci, I think, is still out too because he's had a little injury. So, they got Marshawn back. That's the thing. We were saying, hey, just be 500 until you get Marshawn back. Well, they're way better than that. So they're in good shape.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun to watch too. Unfortunately for me, as somebody who sees them as a nemesis, but
Yeah,
they are really fun to watch right now.
I mean,
Uh,
they are. They just, you know, Bergeron, those guys, they're not done yet.
no, they are not. Our next observation, the Pacific is probably worse than we thought, especially given the fact that Vancouver is imploding.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas we knew would be fine. Edmonton we knew would be fine. The Kings are hanging around. Calgary's not doing as well as we thought. I mean, Calgary, at a 625 is okay, and I'm sure they'll do better. Seattle is actually doing better than we thought. I mean, that's fool's gold with Dave Haxtell. He's very good at that. So, you know, San Jose is going to be where they are now, near the bottom. And if somehow Vancouver stays near the bottom, that's going to make things interesting. And maybe the Kings will be that team again that sucks up that spot. If somehow Seattle made the playoffs, it would be a miracle, I think.
I think so too. I think it's going to be Vegas, Edmonton, Calgary,
Yeah.
and then maybe LA will make the playoffs.
Yeah.
How you feeling about job security for head coaches around the league?
It's interesting. There's new odds out, and while Sheldon Keefe was sort of being looked at as in trouble, but this is just based on what bets are coming in. Obviously, not looked that way anymore. Clearly, Lindy is safe with the Devils doing well. DJ Smith is probably safe for now because there's at least injuries, Josh Norris injury and such, so you could sort of blame it on that. Right now, I don't see a coach. I mean, Dallas Aikens, I know they didn't expect to do well, and if they really do want to tank, you might as well leave him in there and then fire him at the end of the year and let Pat Verbeek get a new guy. But we'll see. We'll see if that situation stays that way the whole year. But right now, out of the first 10 going into the next 10, I don't think anybody's in real imminent danger.
I don't think so either. I think we're in kind of a holding pattern
Yep.
on that front, even in Vancouver as well. I
Yeah.
think they're just going to try and ride this out and see what happens. But yeah, I think it has been a real fascinating start to the season. Some surprises, some things just as we thought they were, and I think the Flyers are right in there with the as expected.
Hmm.
But we'll continue to look for room for improvement, see what happens with Torts' lineup choices, and continue as the season progresses. In the meantime, our next game is up against the Ottawa Senators, and we will talk about that coming up next. Today's episode is also brought to you by Simply Safe. Did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like break ins and package thefts spike everywhere? That's why our friends at Simply Safe Home Security are offering 50% off their award winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. So order your Simply Safe system for half off today and enjoy their advanced security and peace of mind. Simply Safe's advanced technology is what I love the most. I can control their system from my phone with their app. I can watch a live stream from the security cameras on my phone as well. And you can monitor the wide variety of sensors in every room. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents used Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify if a threat is real so you can get a priority police response. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/lockedonnhl today. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/lockedonnhl. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Russ, you want to buy the Ottawa Senators?
If I had the money. If I win Mega Millions.
Yeah, that is a fair point. I forgot to buy my ticket.
Oh, no.
I know,
I
but
bought two, so if I win, I'll throw you a few shekels.
all right. Um, the Ottawa Senators are indeed for sale. There's even rumors about Ryan Reynolds being part of a group wanting to buy the team. So that'll be fun to observe over the coming months. But as far as the team on the ice, they are 4-5 with 8 points. And so, like we said in the last segment, they're at the bottom of the Atlantic Division so far. They lost their last 3 to the Wild, the Panthers, and the Lightning. So difficult opponents for sure.
Yes.
But they had a complete and total collapse against Tampa. Tampa scored 3 goals in the third period to win that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little unfortunate. I expected a little more, maybe a little better in net. Uh, the Josh Norris one hurts because he's definitely one of their best scorers. I think Jake Sanderson's been fine. I think Shane Pinto's been great. So there's all that. Nothing wrong with Claude Giroux. He's been really good too. But their defense is still not quite there, and that's where I think the biggest problem lies for me with them.
Yeah, I think we are lucky in some respects that the first game the Flyers are playing against Ottawa is in Ottawa.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's slightly less pressure on the Giroux side of things that he can see the old team without, the atmosphere of the home crowd, because I'm sure that'll get a little emotional for him. But so far in 9 games played, he has 3 goals and 4 assists. If you just look at his numbers across the board, it's like a smidge down from career averages, but that's to be expected, to be honest.
he is
He
older.
is, yeah. One thing that Shane Pinto is very good at is face-offs,
Yeah,
and he is doing better than Giroux is on the Senators percentage-wise in terms of face-offs. So that's kind of nice to see for Shane Pinto that he's got some really good skills that he's bringing to the plate there. But
yeah, he's a
I
heck of a
think,
player. I watched him in
yeah,
college. I like him a lot. I thought that was a great pick for them.
yeah, and especially with the Josh Norris injury, I think Pinto will get some additional opportunities and minutes.
Yeah, my big thing is really there's been like 3 or 4 good games out of Anton Forsberg, and then he sort of has reverted back to the other Anton Forsberg. So I I'm not sold on him for being able to run uh, the table here, but that's why I was hoping their defense would be better. Maybe at some point that'll get under control. They have had they did beat Boston, which is good, and they beat Washington, which is kind of tough. But some of the losses, like you said, have been bad. Uh, Tampa being the worst of them. So, and they've given up a lot of shots. Like
Mhm.
against Florida, they had 57. He had 57 saves. You can't do that.
No, you cannot. So I think it's another instance to me, like the game in Toronto, where you have a team that's really looking to redeem themselves, especially in front of their home fans. You have the Giroux factor added on top of it. I think you're going to have an extremely highly motivated Ottawa Senators team. And I think the Flyers are really going to have to shake whatever was going on off of the last 2 games to focus and play this game right, because the Senators are really going to come at them.
Plus, Ross probably put the Maloika on him. I'm sure he's done that already. Uh,
Ross from Locked On Sens.
yes. So I would almost guarantee that. Yeah, this is now the third of the road trip. You lost the first 2, even though you got a point. You have to win this one. If you're the Flyers, you have to win this one. If you don't win this one, then you're going to get a lot of people in the media saying, "Hey, you started out great, but where are you now?" And I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I think, the question of can you win on the road is a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to be able to sustain levels of play on a road trip, because they happen lots of times during the season.
Yeah, there's going to be, like you said, some emotion going in this game. There's going to be guys like Konechny playing in, his home area where he played junior hockey at least. And so I think there's going to be a certain amount of that. I could see tempers flaring at some point because they've been flaring for not that many good reasons anyhow. But this is a game where they have to get a lead and keep a lead. That's the other thing. They've not been good at keeping leads this year. They had the lead against the Leafs. They lost that lead pretty quick.
They did. All right. Well, I am a little nervous about that one. I'm a little nervous about having to watch Claude Giroux play, not on the Flyers in this weird scenario, but we're going to get through it. And we'll be back on Monday to recap that game. We'll have our nemesis of the week as well. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you out there. So send us in your mailbag questions. You can tweet us at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and their take of the day. It's available on Odyssey, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.